There it is. All right. Happy Monday. It's not Monday. It's Wednesday. I don't even know what day it is right now. Been a long week already. Hopefully for you guys, it's been pretty good. Week's off to a good start, and you guys are running it down, getting stuff done. Lots of craziness happening in the market. Still just, bloodbath. Lots of fear out there. A little bit of rebound over the last 24 hours here, which is good. Nice to see portfolios come back up a little bit. I know people are people get emotional, when things kind of go a different direction than what they anticipated. I know a lot of people have been buying here recently, and we've seen some new people move into the market, which is good. A lot of new people here on the lives and in the mastermind, which is good to see. So, anytime there's excitement in the market, you have new people come in. Problem is when there's euphoria or things are good, people tend to buy at the higher price, and then if there's some volatility and a move to the downside, people get dissuaded from continuing to participate. Or I say that you know what, there's a good portion of people that I've met that have figured out, okay, let's just average down, right? If I got in at a higher price, and I believe in these things and there's conviction, then it makes sense to just continue to buy it and then continue to bring my cost basis down. We've seen a lot of people do that. There was a gentleman we talked to in Carbon 2 this week, and he said he got in 2018 and just continued to dollar cost average down the whole last 7 years with XRP in particular. So it definitely can be done. I think his cost basis is somewhere around like 40 cents. So, doing that over a period of time does benefit you over the long run if you do have conviction on things and you're able to continue to stay disciplined, even while things may not have the best outlook in the short term. So we do these every Monday and Wednesday night. At least we do our best to. Sick last week, but on the mend, doing better. And so we're here this week for the AMA, Ask Me Anything. We're over here on TikTok, and then we've got you guys on X and also on YouTube as well. I did put out a video today on the crypto reserve. If you guys haven't checked that out, I would recommend. Just talk about which assets I think will likely end up in the reserve and why, and some of the circumstances under which that might happen. Got a little dressed up for that. I walked in and my wife called me Uncle Sam. Because I was trying to be patriotic. You wear the colors, So if you haven't yet, go check that video out. I think it's pretty good. I am a little biased though, obviously. So if you have any questions about that or anything else that comes to your mind when it comes to digital assets, investments, returns, borrowing against it, estate planning, how to mitigate taxes, all that's up for discussion tonight here in the chat. And so without further ado, we'll go ahead and hop into the questions. We've got Alex. He says, did you ever feel like you are investing in a penny stock with XRP when you are new to it? It's always been since for the majority of the time that I've owned it. There's been a few periods where it's been over $1. Obviously right now, being a couple dollars, it still feels kind of like a penny stock. But I believe in what the asset is and what it'll do and the technology, which would be very different than a penny stock. Penny stocks are often based on a company and their promise. XRP is not a security, and it's a protocol. So I'm betting on the adoption of a protocol rather than a business success or on certain individuals. Obviously, there are people with vested interest in the technology itself that have push things along. Ripple is definitely not a penny stock, currently trading for around $75 per share on the secondary market. When they first raised capital back in 2014, they were a penny stock. I think their first round was at like 79 cents or 84 cents per share. And obviously people that got in then have done really well, but that was, more than a decade ago. Which is pretty frustrating for a lot of people that are in venture capital or even private equity. That's a long life cycle for a stock. So, I definitely, I understand what you're saying, and I could definitely see some of the correlation and similarities, but with this being technology, very, very different than a penny stock. Johnny Lakers, how are you, sir? He says, do you see a pump of XRP from the rumors, the lawsuit settling, or dismissed, then the global market collapsing, forcing prices down again? Your guess is as good as mine. I'm waiting on Japan. Japan's the tell for me for when XRP is going to go up and to the right and continuously. Anything until then that causes volatility in price, either up or down, not overly concerned with. That's my tell that all the rest of the dominoes are going to fall, and we're going to see the price appreciation that I'm waiting for. Anything, $10, $13, like that's great. And I think people, if you've got a plan and you want to take some profits there, I don't think it's ever wrong to do so. I don't know that you're going to get the chance to buy back lower if that's what you're asking. A lot of people ask that question like, okay, I want to take some profits and then try to get back in before we get the rebound and it goes even higher. I'm not playing with that. If there's a portion of your bag, like I said, that you're good with selling at $10 or $13 or $15 or whatever that is, and that positions you to be able to pay off debts or make other investments or do other things in your personal life that's going to accomplish, then I think that makes a lot of sense. But trying to play the market has never worked out. Picking bottoms and tops doesn't tend to go well for most people. So just depends on, kind of the premise or the context or why you're asking the question. But till I'm watching for Japan, I'm not overly worried about the lawsuit in the short term. Excuse me. I think it'll follow very quickly after Japan happens, and then we would see, the approval of the ETFs. I think you need a case settlement or dismissal previous to the approval of the ETFs is the reason for that, because the SEC is going to have to approve the S1. S1s, 17 of them. Jesse Escobar says, Jake, 2 days ago, you mentioned that you are going with the income fund, not financial advice. What percentage are you allocating to that option? Considering how much I should allocate and wondering what others are doing. Most people are kind of dipping their toe in the water there with Digital Wealth Partners and just allocating the minimum to the funds, making sure that they're going to get the distributions, making sure it's going to work the right way, which I completely understand. We've done a lot of due diligence on the fund managers that we're partnering with to be able to provide those returns to our clients. And I'm excited that we're going to have a way to be able to generate returns on your XRP. Nobody else has been able to do that. So to be able to have options for that, I think is a huge play in the market, and it significantly benefits people that are holding a pretty decent allocation. Depends on you and your life goals, right? I don't know how much you hold. I don't know how much income you're wanting to get. The income fund should produce somewhere between 15 to 30% per year on people's XRP, and that'll be paid in cash on a quarterly basis. This first allocation is going to be made at the end of this month or April 1st, and so you'll get basically almost a full quarter, and the distributions will be paid first day of July there for everybody that participates in those funds. So whatever you want to receive, if you think your XRP is going to appreciate substantially in that period, you might allocate less. And then, on the other side of that, you might allocate more depending on what you want to do. And again, your long-term goals or how you want to position yourself. So I'm not a financial advisor. You asked what I'm doing. I want to position myself for financial freedom. So just try to supplement my income and cover what I'm making here. And that way I don't have to worry about paying bills or any of that. Just make sure that I'm positioned in a way where that stuff's going to be covered and I can do what I want, which is this. So that's what I'm doing. We got Todd. How are you, sir? Thank you for the super chat. He says, good evening, Jake. I hope all is well. What are your thoughts on the SEC and Ripple settling the case? How will this play into where crypto market is now? Thank you for all you do. Very happy to be part of the Beyond Broke Mastermind. Great to have you in there, Todd. I think the SEC's dropped all the other cases, right? We've had a bunch of regulation by enforcement during the Biden administration over the last 4 years. And to see all of those pretty much drop like flies as, Gary's been gone has been really nice to see. It looks like they're going to start fostering this innovation and bringing clear rules to the road, which is what people have been asking for the whole time. We've got bipartisan support for digital asset regulation here in the U.S. now that Trump's in office. And so I think that this is just kind of the last lingering piece from the previous administration here and how they're going to handle it. They may wait until Paul gets in because it is, has been drug out so long and there was a potential settlement on the table. And they may want his approval as to how they dismiss it or settle or move forward. We're waiting on him to come in April, May, right? So, but we have had a lot of chatter from multiple sources that say things are going to settle out in the next 30 days here. So I think that's my anticipation also. And I think it's going to move the industry forward in a very big way when that happens. I think you will see, a lot of liquidity move in for XRP. And then depending on where that flows to and what it provides utility for, there may be some other assets in digital assets that see liquidity inflows. It might open the floodgate for the rest of the ETFs to be approved that are on the docket, including for HBAR and Litecoin and Doge and Solana. I think that XRP's ETFs get approved before those. We had the SEC come out and say that until May 21st, they're kind of deferring all that stuff, which will be after Paul gets in. And again, maybe that's the case, but I don't think so. I think there's going to be global macroeconomic events that play out in the next 30 days that almost require that they act on some of this stuff and move the ball forward with the Ripple case and the ETFs. So it's going to open the floodgates, I guess would be my answer. And again, appreciate you being part of the mastermind and always asking good questions. Honest Aim, hey brother, appreciate you hopping in here as always. He says, Jake, see the price of oil lately? What do you think? Thanks for all you do for us little guys in the Beyond Work Mastermind. Blessings to you and your family. Blessings to you, brother. Good to see that you got with Jonathan at the shop. Excited to have you guys up there. We're continuing to drop. So you're seeing deflation across the board on all asset classes. And people aren't so happy about their stock portfolio with that. But if you want prices to come down for real estate, if you want prices to come down for commodities and the cost of living, then you want deflation. We saw the CPI come out today at 2.8. It's good. I'm happy to see oil falling. I think that that's going to allow people to, move about a bit easier, travel more, especially this summer. You always see oil tend to go up over the summertime when people are traveling more. But we're back at I think 2020 levels. We haven't seen this since December of 2020, and I think that that'll continue to come down. Over Trump's term. Glad to have it, and I think it's a nice breath of fresh air because it's only 10% of people in the U.S. that even own stocks. Most people don't have enough extra income to make investments. If they do, it's through their 401k. If you're here watching this and you have investments in crypto, you're in the top 5% of people. If you're investing in anything, to be honest with you, it's very few and far between that people are actively looking to make an allocation to something with part of their income. So kudos to everybody that's watching here on YouTube and on X, and then also over here on TikTok. You're part of an elite group of people if you're even having these conversations or interested in this stuff. This person says nothing. This person's name is Nothing Can Swiss Coming. Are you still 100% XRP reaching $50 by end of year? If as long as the global macroeconomic constraints that I have laid out, any of them transpire, yes, you would see a $50 XRP. That could include Tether, that could include Swift, that could include Japan's reverse carry trade unwinding and them adopting a CBDC. issued on the XRPL and using that in their FX market there at SBI. Back into the stock market settlement would definitely require at least a $50 XRP. There are many things that could play out that would push XRP to $50 a piece. Let's see here. Texas Honey Badger. They say, hey, Jake, I just signed up for Carbon One. Awesome. Glad to have you in there. Can you tell me what the schedule is for the Mastermind meetings? I sure can. And that's a very good question. So we meet every single Saturday at 11 a.m. 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. I used to do my lives on the weekends and the mornings on Twitter. And now that's about the same time we do it there in the Mastermind on Saturdays, 9 a.m. If you don't, or not there, you're not able to listen for whatever reason, that's Central Standard Time, by the way, then you can always listen back to it later. We have probably 2,000 hours worth of recordings there in the Mastermind over the last 2 years. And those are in the call recordings channel. So if you ever do miss a call for whatever reason, you can always listen back to what was discussed, and you can put it on like 1.5 speed if you want to listen to it and go through it a little bit faster. I try to keep them pretty condensed, never more than 2 hours, because I know people, do want to listen back to them and digest them. And then we have another one on Mondays at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, where we go over macroeconomics. That one tends to be about 30 minutes. We'll just, go over where the markets are at, what to expect for the week, things I'm watching, things other people are watching. Sometimes we have extra special guests on Mondays. Sometimes we have people that go over private credit, how to improve your credit, how to run different types of deals, different due diligence on different types of deals, whether that's real estate or private equity, or, we've had Matt Schneider in there, who's our CIO from Digital Wealth Partners, talk about the different funds and stuff that they're working on. Have other experts come in and talk about different things. If you guys have any people that you would like to see, we're more than happy to get them there in the group and have them come in and run things down. So a lot of resources there in the Mastermind for people. And if you did just join, that's fantastic. Hopefully you use the free code. The free code to get a month there in the Mastermind for free is Beyond Broke, all capitalized, and then the number 1, and then MO. So Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you a free month there in Carbon One or the social membership. And we do have in real life events. We've probably done more of those than any other Mastermind group affiliated in crypto that I'm aware of. Bored Ape Yacht Club may have, more than us, but we try to do a lot in person. We have it here in Dallas. Try to do at least one meetup per quarter. We've done Oklahoma City. We've done Arkansas. We've done Vegas. We'll do Vegas again this year. We just put the Luma invite in the group for the event at XRP Vegas, which we will be hosting. And I'm sure that'll fill up very quickly. It's a private event, invite only, at the top of Mandalay Bay, which would be pretty cool. So yeah, look forward to seeing you guys there. We also run private deals there in the group. So if you want access to fintech companies and you are not accredited, the Mastermind is a great way to get access to that stuff. Anybody know what's going on with Link 2? I've had a lot of people reach out and ask me. I don't personally know, but it seems like there's some stuff going on. So Drew says, when do you think we will hit a little higher on XRP? Markets are going back up now. People that are smarter than me are saying that we're going to melt up for the next 2 or 3 weeks before we melt down. That's quite possible, right? Michael Gade, Finance a Lot, Just Dario. There's a lot of people over there on Twitter that I follow that are macroeconomists that are looking at multiple countries and currencies and constraints. I think we're still in for a meltdown with reverse carry trade. We got a CPI that didn't indicate that they are going to lower interest rates. I think if we had got a CPI that was worse than what people thought, then they would have to lower interest rates and you'd see an opening of breadth in markets. But we didn't get that. So my anticipation is further down before we see upside. But again, I think we're in for volatility. If you're holding on to the VIX, I think you'll do good. How do you become accredited? So an accredited investor here in the U.S., there's 3 different qualifications that you can have. One is that you have $1 million net worth outside of the equity in your primary residence. So you can't count the equity in your home that you live in. If you have $1 million worth of net worth outside of that, then you qualify as accredited. If you made $200,000 if you're single, $300,000 if you're married for the past 2 years, and you have tax returns for that, you can use those to qualify as accredited. And then the final way here in the US is you can qualify. You can take your Series 65 and be sponsored by somebody that you hold that license with, and you qualify as an accredited investor. So all of our financial advisors have their Series 65, or if they don't have a 65, they have a 66 and a 7. So those are the ways that you can do it. And I'm hopefully, that'll change. Hopefully there's some type of test or other criteria that people will be allowed to use in the future, but that is how it currently sits today. Let's see here. Gary, he's got the super chat with 589. Very nice. He says, thanks for the education. We have our first LLC consultation on Monday with Connor. Awesome. I'm making a list of questions. What questions might you ask? If I were asking about, so Connor doesn't normally deal with LLCs. He doesn't set those up. He's a financial advisor, but he does, you have to have a corporation that holds your digital assets in order to participate with Digital Wealth Partners. So he can explain that to you, and he can explain to you some of the tax advantages that you'll get with the LLC. There's a lot of reasons that you might set up an LLC previous to price appreciation. One is anonymity. That's one of the things I probably don't talk about enough. If you're holding your assets there in a Wyoming-based company, you get attorney-client privilege. And so on any public documentation that's associated with the wallet address or anything that you'd have to declare, you're going to have that anonymity. That's the name that's going to appear. And because you have attorney-client privilege, it's going to be difficult for other people to figure out who's associated with the entity. And we also do have nominee services if people want to use somebody else as their proxy manager for signing documentation. It's pretty cheap. We have a pretty affordable partner for that. But on the other side of price appreciation, if your assets go above the gift tax threshold, which is $13.99 million per person here in the U.S., between you and your spouse, you get almost $28 million that you can gift out of your taxable estate if it suits you. Then you can compress that down in an LLC because you can give small pieces of equity to family and friends and get another valuation, get a 409 valuation done on the corporation, and squeeze that equity down and move more of the assets out of your estate if you wanted to. You can also set up a private placement life insurance policy and be able to write off your investment or your funding of the policy because it's a key employee policy, which you wouldn't be able to do out of your personal name. Again, you get the full breadth of the tax code. So if you do have capital gains or income off of the assets, then you'll be able to use that income in a lot of different ways to be able to mitigate taxes. And I'm like everybody else. I want the income tax to go away. I want capital gains on crypto to go away. But you still got gift tax and estate tax. And there's going to be state taxes also. Like even if you don't have a federal income tax, there's still going to be state taxes you have to deal with, and you'd want a way to be able to mitigate those as well. So there's the reasons to set up an LLC for your digital assets and your investments is way more prevalent than the reasons not to. The only reason I could think not to might be cost. And, if you have less than $50,000 to $80,000 invested, then, probably just keep buying your investments and keep investing your capital that way. But if you, are beyond that, then it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and get that done. And if that's something you're interested in, we do provide that through Digital Family Office. You can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and you can use the code 50OFF50 OFFDAG LLC. That's 50 off DAG LLC gets you everything you'd need for an LLC to manage your digital assets for $1,500. Jacob says, what is an LLC and the purpose of having one? So an LLC is a limited liability corporation. It is a type of corporation here in the U.S. You can elect it to be used as a pass-through entity. How long is the code good for? We haven't ever removed that one. So if you wanted to wait a little bit, if you don't have the money now, you can always use that code, the 50 off DAG LLC. There on the website on digitalfamilyoffice.io. But again, LLC is a corporation here in the U.S. You can elect to be taxed as an S corp, so you get pass through taxation, so you're not taxed twice, once at the corporate level and then once at the personal level. And it gives you the full breadth of the tax code to be able to offset, income from your investments, and it allows you a nice, neat vehicle to manage your digital assets through. Setting up bank accounts becomes easier for a corporation. I say easier. It's about the same amount to set up a bank account for a corporation. But when you go to take profits, it's a lot less likely that they're going to flag it. If it's moving to a company, they have a lot of expectations that larger values are going to move through those accounts versus personal accounts. So if you do plan to take, 6-7 figures, makes a lot of sense to go ahead and set up a company to be able to do that. Braden Hoder, he says, hey Jake, how are you, sir? Absolutely love the Mastermind. I can't speak highly enough of Max and yourself. Thank you so much for the kind words, brother. We try to provide a lot of value there in the group. I've been a part of a lot of other masterminds and, paid thousands of dollars to be a part of them. And we try to put more value out in this mastermind than I've ever gotten in any of those. There's a mastermind I'm a part of right now that's been pretty good. But it was $30,000 a year to be a member of. So, anyway, I always try to pay. Well, I say that I don't always. Every time I've paid more than I've been comfortable with to be in a room with people I didn't belong with, I've always leveled up. And so, that's just been a lesson for myself. I was on a podcast the other day and talked about that. But yeah, putting yourself around like-minded people that want to be better and do better, it's never wrong. And that's what we have there in the mastermind, and super glad that you're a part of it. We've got Off the Grid Hero. They say, in one word, where do you place in function these crypto XRP, XLM, when the financial system will be at full power? It's an interesting way to word it. XRP, I think, will do the most volume of transactions globally. It'll be the backbone for how value moves, and the main protocol that moves value across the world. Hyperledger, I think, will probably move the second most amount of volume out of what's listed here. And then Avalanche and Axelar, I think, will be pretty prevalent in interoperability and smart contracts for financial institutions and how people transact. And then last would be Stronghold. Strongholds, they're just a payment processor company that has a token to be able to facilitate that. It's highly unlikely that they'll ever gain anywhere near the amount of traction that Stripe has. Stripe will launch a token. Not to say I'm not poo-pooing on Stronghold, but again, I reached out to them to use their services and nobody ever responded after multiple emails and phone calls. And people have pointed that out on Twitter and they still haven't responded or reached out. So, probably not the best sales company in the world. And maybe they don't care about my business. Maybe I'm not a big enough fish for them. I don't know. But anyway, maybe I'm salty over that too. I don't know. I just don't think the token has the same upside that a lot of people are hoping for on that. But Axelar, Avalanche, XRP, and XLM, I think all those are going to be deeply entwined with the full power of the financial system. Let's see here. We got Ollie, €5. Thank you, sir. Or £5. How would you recommend I educate myself to prepare for potential wealth hitting us as someone in early 20s in the UK, not US? London Real, Brian Rose is a really good individual over there. I would watch all of his podcasts that he's put out with wealthy individuals. He's interviewed Grant Cardone, most of Mr. Olympia's. Brian does a really good job of asking good questions. He's a mentee of Dan Pena. Dan Pena would be another person I'd recommend following. He's a little foul mouth, but very sharp businessman. You know, I would start finding people in that area and watching YouTube and trying to find people that, have built wealth there and are talking about what that looks like and how to manage it. It's probably going to be a pretty niche deal. Most people don't really care about that, and so they don't tend to get as much visibility. Here in the US, it's a little more prevalent. You have channels like Ask Kevin and Graham Stephan and people like that have kind of built a brand around financial education and investments. And Graham's more real estate, whereas Ask Kevin's more stock stuff. Both of them talk about crypto. They both have podcasts. Reading books would be another fantastic way if you can. I don't have. Here we go. Here's one. I haven't had this up behind me in a while, but the Family Office book. If you wanted to read this has it's pretty in-depth knowledge of ways that a lot of families manage their assets. And other books on wealth management would be a great starting place. One of the books that I read in my early 20s that kind of changed my paradigm around things was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I got to meet Robert 3 years ago at the Super Bowl, which was really cool. And so, just seeking out knowledge, being curious. You have Google, all of it's at your fingertips. It's just having the willingness to push through and, search out what's good and what's not. And it's not going to matter which jurisdiction you're in. You're going to be able to find people that are putting out good stuff. How does XRP XLM work during a blackout? So I'm not the technical guy. You could probably ask T's Crypto Spot and he could run it down really easy for you. But basically they you got Starlink for one. I think that there's probably not a situation, even during a blackout, where there's not going to be any internet. But you've also got multiple nodes in level 4 facilities and underground bunkers and other places that wouldn't be affected. And whatever nodes were down during the blackout would be able to come back online and catch up with the transactions that were, that had happened while they were down. So both of these are decentralized enough at this point that even during a blackout, I don't think you would see a disruption of the network. Here we go. Hans Morris says, "Hey, Jake, say my parents and I both own XRP separately." Very good. Say if our holdings combined were worth forming an LLC, would you recommend joining forces, keeping holdings separate? I would keep things separate. Creating a partnership is a taxable event. So single member LLCs are not a taxable event. You're contributing the assets, as the capital to form the company in exchange for the equity. And therefore there's no step up in basis or change in time frame. But if you and partners are contributing capital, there is a taxable event, and it does reset the basis and the time frame for the assets held. So just a consideration, I'm not saying you could do a family limited partnership. I would look at that, and that would be a way that you could contribute the assets from multiple people and hold it in one entity without the tax implications. So a family limited partnership would be the way I would go if you wanted to go that direction. It's a good question. We've got DK and Y767. They say, "Hey, Jake, how are you? Thanks for all you do." Thank you for being on here and asking good questions. Now that it appears that the SEC case is winding down very soon, do you expect that the ETFs will be expedited, or do you think we'll have to wait till October as discussed earlier this week? I mean, they've pushed till May 21st on kind of kicking the can at the SEC, but I think, again, if you had a global event that was a catalyst, I think those things might change. There might be some expedience for the SEC to act and move things forward. So, excuse me. I don't think you'll have to wait until October. I think at worst we will just wait till May 21st after Paul's in. Make sure I'm not missing any other super chats, and we'll grab. Oh wow, thank you for this super chat. They say, hey Jake, if someone has less than 50K invested in crypto and will want to invest the profits in real estate investments, would you still recommend setting up an LLC holding corporation prior to price appreciation? Thank you for the mastermind. It's great, lots of value. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you again for the super chat here. Blown away by the $100. Thank you so much. If you still want to invest your profits in real estate investments, actually it would become even more advantageous to go ahead and have a management company if you planned on doing it that way, because you would want to allocate those investments into those properties and set up their own LLC around each property, and those could all be subsidiaries of the management company, and you would want to keep it an LLC for many reasons. But yeah, I would. That makes a lot of sense to be able to manage all of those subsidiaries or other properties that you'd be investing in with the profits off the crypto and the holding company. If it were structured that way, and setting it up now would just position you really well to be able to move very quickly on that if you had some deals that you wanted to close. So yeah, I would. Makes a lot of sense to me to structure it that way. Terezo's how's it go? Have a go. Hey Jake, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. I am doing well. I'm on the mend. Appreciate you for the kind words. What's your take on the crypto summit? Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thank you. I don't say that enough. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, people that are watching, if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, and sharing this with somebody else, it does help the algorithm and helps it get out there. So I thought it was interesting, Brad Garlinghouse sitting at the table with all of the other advisors for Trump from the cabinet, and then everybody else for the rest of the room. He was on the far left, which tends to be the banking committee's chair. So I thought it was very telling that Brad was there, and the other people, Michael Saylor was obviously there, and then there was many others on the Bitcoin camp side. But Trump didn't seem overly sold on Bitcoin. He said, we signed this executive order and we have this crypto reserve, and the Bitcoiners say not to sell your Bitcoin, and they've been right to this point, but who knows? Those were his almost exact words. So he did mention that the stablecoin regulation will be in place by August of this year. Really bullish on the whole space. It's very cool to see that he's hosting people there that have aligned interest and want to see crypto succeed, and he wants to do that as well. And he's held true on his word for the campaign that he ran on. And so, I thought it was great, but I don't think it was as big a deal for Bitcoin as a lot of the maxis may put out that it was. This person says, been looking crazy lately. Still bullish though. Looking for a lot of charts and analysis. I'm not a TA guy. I do like the TNA, but I am not a technical analysis person. So you might go check out like Blockchain Backer or Kevin Cage. Those are probably my two favorite people with chart analysis and the way that they predict things. Trying to think if there's anybody else that I think is a good TA person. We'll be on, we're circling up with Kevin Cage here in the near future. I think we're going to be in his Discord, maybe on the channel, which will be really cool. Zach Rector does a little bit too. He's another one I would recommend. Let's see here if we've got any other super chats. We do. We've got True King. He says, hey, if I want to take profit from XRP and I convert to ROUSD and then transfer my bank, is that resetting my long-term hold? Just want to make sure. Anytime you swap from XRP to anything else, fiat, a stable coin, another coin, whatever it is, you have a taxable event. They are capital assets currently at this time under the tax code, and you'd have taxes. You would not have taxes on stable coins that you then converted to fiat to be sent to your bank account. So it's not like you would get taxed twice. It would just be once on the sale of the XRP to the stable coin. So good question though, because I'm sure there's lots of people out there that want to know that, and it's probably not as prevalent, not as prevalent for people to be able to find that information. We've got Shadespot. They say, let's Charlie Munger's this and test your objectivity. Scenario: XRP doesn't appreciate. It doesn't do what you and me anticipate it will. Why? What happens to cause this possible outcome? So I'm assuming you're talking about Charlie's like negative bias. He would always reverse the question and then do the opposite of that. I really like Charlie Munger and the way that he thinks through things, because most people are very good at finding the negative, and they don't necessarily have as good objective reasoning when it comes to positive outcomes. So I like your antithesis, thinking here. I mean, we've already seen pretty much the only way that they could stymie the innovation here in the US, and that was the lawsuit against Ripple. There really wasn't another way to be able to objectively stop the proliferation or use of the network until they did that. And now that we have, a resolution coming for that, and you've got a necessity for this technology, if there were competitors out there that had gained market traction during the period where XRP was delayed, I think maybe that's a way that it could not be possible. But Ripple's continued to scale their sales globally and infiltrate, other parts of the globe. And we've already seen Brazil issue they're issuing their CBDC on the XRPL. Ripple's already met with the Treasury here in the US. They've launched ROUSD, and the Genius stablecoin bill reflects very highly of the XRPL and ROUSD. And at this point, I don't think you can stop this train. Sorry to say it. But if somebody else had gained market traction during the interim, which I think Ethereum tried to do, then maybe that would have stopped it. But at this point, all roads lead to the use of the XRPL for global settlement in multiple applications. It's not just Swift. I think you're going to get the back end of the stock market. You're going to get all of these other applications as well, because of the partnerships and the integrations and the things that have been built that are actively in place. And the amount of time that it would take to replace those things or change your mind or have a competitor come in and circumvent it, it's just not feasible at this point. So good question though. Let's see here. We've got Xenos. They say, hey Jake, how are you? DWP shows a 50K minimum for XRP custody. Is that correct? What type of cost is associated with that? And will it make securing lending on LLC held assets smoother? Thanks for all your good work. Absolutely. So we normally do 100. If it still shows 50, then I will honor it. You can sneak in there for 50K XRP, but it's supposed to be 100, and I will make sure my team changes that this evening. We have run a few specials where we allowed people in for only 50,000 XRP. And again, if you want to take advantage, take advantage. But we charge 2% on the assets there for the year. So let's say you just had, not that 50,000 XRP is a small amount because it's not, but let's say it's 50,000 XRP and it's currently $2. So, we're at $100,000 right now. 2% per year would be $2,000 divided by 12, which is going to give you, like 150, 160 bucks a month. Are going to be the fees to hold your assets there in institutional custody. You get financial advising. You have $100 million worth of insurance on your assets. You're able to add your spouse or your significant other to the account, so they have visibility. You can add beneficiaries to the account. You get the highest grade level security. Period. There's not anything better than Anchorage out there, and you do get access to all of the products and services that we're providing, such as the lending. Like you mentioned here. So Arch Lending, I believe, will loan against that smaller amount of XRP and would be able to provide you liquidity against those assets. James Hall, appreciate you, man. I hope you're doing well. He says, info on Decent, your book, and QE Sprinter Start. All right, well, we can run it down in that order. So Decent, I think we have a link maybe in the bio on the channel, and then also probably on the show notes for this video and all the other ones. We are an affiliate. I'm just transparent about that. It's the best cold wallet that I think is out there, and that's why we partnered with them. They got a biometric. They have the largest breadth of assets on there. I think the security and what they provide is a really good product. And so Ledger, I know people have been hacked on and lost assets. Other people like EliPal or Arcalis, or I wouldn't recommend a hot wallet. There was a gentleman that I was talking to the other day that had like 1 million XRP on Exodus. Both Exodus and Atomic Wallet are hot wallets, but they've been both hacked, and it's probably not the best place to be holding that amount of digital assets. So again, I prefer Decent, and it should be in the show notes on this video and the other ones here on the channel as well. The book. So we did put out a book at the end of last year. It's called Wealth in Numbers. Max Avery and myself. It's there on Amazon, also at Barnes & Noble, and Goodreads, and a few other places. It's about syndicating deals. So we've run private deals there in the Mastermind group. We have a software that we've developed to make that much easier for people. If you don't want to use the software, you can read that 480-page book and figure out how to do it yourself. It's a how-to guide on basically how to raise capital and all the ways that you can use an SPV and all the regulatory compliance and administrative components that are required to be able to do that in a compliant way here in the U.S. But yeah, I'm really excited to get that out to market and launch that software. We're running our first deal across the platform right now for, I can't talk about it. But you'll know if you're in the Mastermind group, we would be able to tell you. And it's not because I had to the anticipation is not my thing, just so you know, literally for regulatory compliance reasons, I can't talk about the deal publicly because it's a 506B. And we're involving non-accredited investors on the cap table. So I have to, the only way I can talk about it is in the Mastermind. And then he asked about quantitative easing or QE. So I don't think we're going to get any more of that. I don't think we're going to get the money printer's not going to go burr anymore. I think the Fed's done with that. If they continue to do it, you're going to see massive amounts of inflation, and Trump's not going to allow that. He wants them to lower interest rates and use that lever to ease lending and borrowing. So I think that's probably the next action that the Fed will take is lowering of interest rates, because if they don't, the stock market's going to continue to fall, and we're going to continue to see deflation. So, I think the days of quantitative easing are over. Bryson over here has asked for XDC price target. I mean, you see, I got the shirt on. I think $3 to $5 this go is pretty reasonable potential price target for XDC, especially if you see an application where it's adopted in trade finance. I think that that's pretty reasonable. What's your take on Ripple selling the escrow to the government? I think they might even have a pre-allocated contract and a pre-negotiated price for that. And that would be a really easy way for them to get it into the stockpile. Donovan Teal says, what is the carrying cost for an LLC in Wyoming? We charge $500 a year on the maintenance of that, but you can do it yourself. So the state costs there like $60 a year unless you have assets over 20 million, and then it goes up. They charge a percentage of that. And then the registered agent, depends on which ones you use. It could be anywhere from $100 to $300 a year. And then you got state filing fees and some other stuff associated with that. So again, we're $500 all in. We just do it all for you. If you need the BOI, which I don't think we're going to need, which is awesome. The Treasury came out and said we're not going to have to deal with that, which is super cool. But that's, tends to be a registered agent, state costs, and then taxes and whatever reporting you're going to provide for the LLC. Those would be your carrying costs. Hey, Nick, how's it going, man? Hope you're doing good. Known him a long time. He says, hey, Jake, no question. Just wanted to thank you for your impact on me. I now create content for my business. Awesome, man. Super excited to hear that. Per your advice, also invested huge in XRP. Thank you, brother. It's awesome, man. So for those that don't know, Nick has a tree cutting business, and he also makes some really cool furniture from the trees that he cuts down. Yeah, I've known Nick since he was younger, and anyway, glad to see you being successful, brother. Keep crushing it out there. Thank you for the kind words in the super chat. Let's see here. M. Evans says, hey, Jake, can you explain why they did not create or issue a trillion RLUSD if they know it will have to address a worldwide market? So Ripple doesn't have $1 trillion to buy treasuries with. People have to buy RLUSD from Ripple, and then they take that money and they buy treasuries with it and back it. So you have to have cash or cash equivalents in order to do that. So they just launched with, like 40 million or 50 million of their own money. Ripple put that out, and now they've had exchanges and other people purchase RLUSD. I don't think RLUSD is going to address a worldwide market. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as big as Tether. I think it's just a mechanism by which Ripple can, provide value to their customers, and it's a showcase of how you would launch a stablecoin correctly here in the U.S. XRP is the one that's going to address global markets, whereas RLUSD, Ripple's the counterparty, right? So if you're using and holding their token, there's counterparty risk for Ripple. Most other banks and fiduciaries are not going to want that counterparty risk. They would rather use their own stablecoin and their own money. So it's not like JP Morgan or Fidelity or Goldman or Bank of America is going to be using Ripple stablecoin. They won't. They will issue their own. Ripple is going to use that on exchanges and in other applications for their products, but I think that's pretty much what it'll be limited to. So yeah, that's, there's a lot of reasons why they didn't issue $1 trillion, but the main one is they don't have $1 trillion to do it. Let's see here. We've got Hunter. He says, can you expand a little more on what you're looking for at Japan to do? I know you talk about the 1.5. What else are we looking for? Well, pull up the yen versus the USD on the trading view. Excuse me. And I'll we'll just pull this up here. Let me see if can I even share my screen? I bet I can. Let's give it a go here. Understand. All right. Can you guys see that? This is the first time I've ever tried that here. So you can see this is at 148. When I'm looking at this, This is on the 1 day. So we've seen a rise in the yen since 2021. And this isn't a rise, it's actually a depreciation against the dollar. So it used to be around 104 yen, 100 yen per dollar. And now they've seen inflation in their economy because their currency is depreciated against the dollar. It's gone down. And you see it trading in this range. When it got here to 140 back in August last year, that's when the reverse carry trade started to unwind pretty substantially. And then up here, in the inflation is very high for the Japanese economy, and they need to raise interest rates. So that's what they started doing here to be able to quell inflation. And their currency appreciated against the dollar very rapidly. And that's where you saw the reverse carry trade start to unwind. Since then, they've tried to keep it in this trading range here between these 2 points. And when we saw 147 the other day, the Bank of Japan had to step in again. So this range is closing. I think that they could probably get back up to close to 157, 160. And that's going to be too much inflation for their economy. Their CPI came out and they're still have pretty good inflation there in Japan. And this is kind of the lower bound now, where if it's going to appreciate much more than this, then you would also see an unwind or the reverse carry trade. So that's the other chart that I'm watching, is their currency versus the US dollar. Sorry, you couldn't see that over here on TikTok. But you just go to yen versus the US dollar on TradingView and pull it up, and it should be around 148. So that, along with the 10-year treasury there in Japan, it's in the danger zone. It's over 1.5. Interest rates in Japan are still far below that, and I think that they're going to have to raise them in the near term in order to catch up with the bonds rising like they are, because people don't believe that they're not going to. They anticipate that they're going to hike them, and so they price that in. And when they do, you're going to see a global credit call on the tens of trillions of dollars that have been borrowed from their economy. We are about an hour in here. We're going to hang out another 15 or 30 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up for this evening. We've got Jeremiah. He says, thank you for the super chat. He says, what happens after XRP is burned through as transactions are processed by banks? That's like 1,000 years from now at the current burn rate for the total volume of transactions. And as things get adopted, I'm highly confident that they will likely vote to lower the burn rate on the XRP to continue to be able to allow the asset to participate and be used even longer than 1,000 years. So I don't know. I won't be around to care, and neither will my kids. K Morgan, how are you, sir? He says, question for you. I see Greg Kidd mention his thoughts on deposit tokens instead of stable coins that banks might create, and wanted to hear your thoughts. Happy New Year in some calendars, or April Fools. Here almost. We got a little bit until the spring equinox. Greg's interesting. I listen when Greg Kidd talks. He talks about an intergalactic currency like XRP. For him to say that when he did is just very interesting. There's been other 3-letter agencies and authorities that I've talked to that have mentioned things in a similar context. So he's one I watch for sure. And for him to say, deposit tokens versus stable coins, likely probably going to be the case. Greg would know. There was, what did I look at the other day that was going to be interesting? They weren't non-fungible tokens. It was an amendment that's going to be passed on the XRPL that I put a video out about. It basically allowed for the fractionalization of fungible tokens, which makes sense. You would, like a $1 bill and a $5 bill, but you could fractionalize stable coins down to, or stocks or whatever other tokenized asset down to something that was fungible for a larger amount, but still in kind, right? I think that there'll be a lot of that. But if there's, some type of deposit token that earns a return and maybe is used to purchase treasuries, I'd have to do some more research on what he said there with the deposit tokens before I had a more educated answer on it. But I appreciate you bringing it to my attention, and hope you and your wife are doing well. We've got conservative asset class. They say, how's it going? How are you, sir? What did Buffett know that we didn't? I think the bull run will only start after the stimulus kicks in, except for XRP. What am I missing? I mean, Buffett's on the sideline with $334 billion in treasuries. He's just continuing to stockpile cash and make money off of Geico and See's Candy and Coca-Cola. Buffett's Buffett. He is the liquidity provider. He owns more treasuries than the U.S. government. So, I think he's waiting for the markets to collapse again, like he has in the past. He knows that opportunity is coming. He knows that there's going to be deflation. He knows that there's going to be huge buying opportunities in the near future when the reverse carry trade unwinds. He's stacked stuff to the side, waiting for that to happen. So I don't know. You mentioned stimulus kicks in. I'm not sure what the stimulus is. The U.S. government's not going to print money. Like, I know everybody's hoping that they do that again, but I'm highly confident that that's not going to happen. Especially if you had the velocity of money pick up, the inflation that would happen if they did quantitative easing plus implemented blockchain at scale would just be asinine. It would be like 1 + 1 = 5. We would be Weimar Republic next week if they did that while implementing these technologies. They're going to have to drastically reduce M2 money supply if they implement instant settlement for payments. So I don't see that happening. So, but maybe that's not what you meant by stimulus. That's just the term that I think of when you say that. So, I think that we're in for, big move down in markets here. I've continued to say that. I'm happy to say if I'm wrong, if there is a melt up before there's a meltdown, it's quite possible. But I do think we get the meltdown, and on the other side of that's where we see XRP and a lot of these other assets go up into the right for the next decade. This person says, KG says, if you believe Zach out $1,000 into XDC, not sure exactly what you mean by that. Ollie says 3 to 5 is your long-term definitive projection for XDC, or is it just this year? If not, what do you think it can go to long-term? I think that's short-term. If it's adopted at scale for trade finance. So for those that may not know, XDC's network is curated to be able to standardize transactions for documents that have value. So it could be debt notes, it could be warrants, it could be any other documentation. So it's right now the main application's trade finance. So like receivables or bill of lading, all the documentation that's required for trade can be tokenized and standardized in the way that Andre Casterman has put together for TradeFi. And then instant settlement can be used, to be able to settle those transactions with XDC. But we talked to, when I was in Dubai last year and spoke at XDC's headquarters with Atul and Ritesh and the other individuals that I was there with, we met Comtech Gold, and they're tokenizing gold warrants on XDC. So it's a claim on the gold that you can take, into a gold store and exchange for gold jewelry, or take down to the depository and get the bar of gold as a claim on the gold. But it's a warrant, so it's a document that has value that represents an underlying asset. So tokenization of debt notes or warrants, I think, is another application for XDC over the long term. The functionality on the network's limited, though, in some capacities because of what it's curated for. So we're working on a way to be able to generate returns on XDC. Anchorage is going to be able to provide custody for XDC in Q2 this year, and we'll be able to generate returns on our clients' XDC, or yield, actually, which would be really cool. Excuse me. So through a couple different mechanisms, which would be great. One of which will be, participating in a masternode. So, 3 to 5 over the long term. I'd maybe 10, maybe 50. I don't see a circumstance where it's more than that, especially as they continue to put more out to incentivize the validators to validate the network, because it is, it's delegated proof of stake is what you get for participating and running a node on the network. You get somewhere between 8 and 10%, whether if you're a standby node or a master node, annually. And they have a repository of XDC that pays out those rewards and returns. So there's more and more XDC every single day, similar to like Bitcoin. Now, if that stuff is locked up and we get our way and we're continuing to build out nodes for the network and there's less for it to be able to settle transactions with, then you could see some type of supply shock, and maybe it goes higher than what I think. But it is a supply and demand type situation. So that's just my best guess. Let's see here. We've got Humble Hustler says, love the mastermind. Glad to have you in there. We are fam in there. Yes, we are. Let's say XRP hits $1,000 tomorrow. You know something I don't, Humble Hustler? What needs to be my first 3 steps? I already have an LLC, bank account. My goal is to live off passive income for my holdings. If you already have those things set up, I'd get with Digital Wealth Partners. And that sounds like a sales pitch, and it is kind of, but at the same time, I don't know where else you're going to be able to generate returns for your XRP in the immediate term, or be able to borrow against it and not have to liquidate large amounts to be able to fund your lifestyle. So if those are part of your prerogative, if you want to be able to earn, like you said here, passive income, Digital Wealth Partners would be the way to go for that. And they can provide ways to do that almost immediately on the XRP. And then, as DeFi gets built out, they will integrate all of those options as well. Flare, I'm sure, will provide some way to be able to generate returns in your XRP, although there's counterparty risk. So just be careful with that. If you're going to put it up in Mint XRP, if I would be the one doing both sides of that transaction, I'd put up the Spark to be able to do that. And yeah, I don't know of another way within the next 6 months that you're going to be able to generate returns on your XRP outside of what we're able to provide there at Digital Wealth Partners. Now, you have AMMs, and permanent losses there aren't great, and those don't pay distributions. You'd have to liquidate LP tokens in order to do that. And again, I don't know of anybody else that's issuing a credit line against your XRP to be able to generate returns with. So, next 3 steps would be reach out to Digital Wealth Partners, get your assets over there, and then put them to work and work with their financial advisors to be able to generate the returns that you're looking for to support your lifestyle. And you can just go to digitalwealthpartners.net and go check that out. If you've got more than, we'll call it 50,000 XRP tonight, and you're interested in that, I'm sure they would love to have a conversation with you. Just go to the contact us form there. This person's asked, how do I join the mastermind? There's a link in the bio over here on TikTok, but you can just go to beyondbroke.com, and you can use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, and the number 1, MO. So beyondbroke, the number 1, and then MO, all capitalized, get you a free month there in Carbon One or in the social membership. Don, he says, hi, Jake. Does an LLC need to be associated with a business? I'll see you in Vegas. So you're in the business of investing and managing your investments. That is the business. This is a holding corporation, NAICS code 5511122, or 5511112 or 5511114 are the two NAICS codes that you can look up. They are holding companies for the management of assets or investments. And the way that we draft the operating agreement, you have full capability to manage your digital assets through the LLC. So it's technically a business. There may not be profits this year. There might not be profits next year. You can go 2 years with a deferred. It's not a deferred entity. It's a. It'll come to me. Anyway, you can go 2 years without any profits or transactions in a corporation without it being wrong. So it's no problem. And you would definitely want to have it in place to be able to transact at scale with your digital assets, to be able to earn income or borrow against them or use them to the way that most people want to use them. So that is your business. And thank you for the super chat. And I look forward to seeing you in Vegas as well. Jeremiah, he says, read that we could get screwed because of the penalty from the judge. Basically, that instructions could receive their purchases of XRP in ways that won't benefit the rest of us. I'm confused by your statement here. I don't think that we could really be screwed by the penalty from the judge. All of the XRP that's been purchased by retail has been on the secondary market. It's not direct from Ripple. The only violations that Ripple had were under Section 5 of the securities laws, and that's what they had to pay the fines for, and that's what the judge issued. And even if they paid that in XRP, there's not going to be anything with the case at this point that would affect retail holders aside from the adoption of the asset and price appreciation. Here's for those that are wondering, Living Legacy's been nice enough to post it. Here's access to the Mastermind over here on YouTube. It's mastermind.beyondbroke.com. And again, the free code here at the end, beyondbroke, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there in the group. This person's asked, what's the potential value of HBAR? Your guess is as good as mine. I'm super bullish on HBAR, their council. I think that it'll be the main layer that all dApps are built on top of for Web3. And I think that it'll be a global data transmission mechanism. I don't think anything else is going to beat it for that. XRP going to dip before the pump. I think you already got the dip, brother. I think the dip is gone. We'll see, though. I don't have a crystal ball. I have made it to the bottom of the chat over here. This person says $10 to $50 XDC. You better stop amping me up. Just being honest, I think that it can get there over the long term. People ask me what the long-term price appreciation might be. This person's asked, what's the deal with the first 3,200 transactions missing from the XRPL? Is that an exposure to be concerned with? Do you think there are another 100 billion tokens issued? Well, there's definitely not another 100 billion tokens issued. And there's a total supply. Like that would be very apparent at this point if there were more tokens issued. People are so silly. So the first 3,200 transactions that are missing from the ledger, I think people would be very interested to see those and how those correlated with Bitcoin. And I think it would expose that the people that made Bitcoin also made XRP. And that's why they're missing. Bitcoin people won't tell you that. They want to be like, oh, they're hiding things. Yeah, they are hiding the fact that the same people that created Bitcoin created the XRPL. And if people knew that, there would be a mass exodus from Bitcoin into XRP, because it would be very apparent that that's the actual vision for Satoshi and where things are actually going to be used at scale globally. there's a lot of speculation on as to why those transactions aren't available for people to view, but that's my opinion on it. I think that there are transactions there that would compromise the anonymity of Satoshi. It's my personal opinion. Let's see here. This person's asked, when you hold an LLC in a cold wallet with an NRX, do you have to hold it in a certain way? I already have an LLC, but deposited the money through my personal. Can I take it out through an LLC? So when we set up the LLC, we use the ledger or whatever cold wallet the assets are being held on as the capital contribution to start the business. So if you already had an LLC that you wanted to move your assets into, you would just make a capital contribution to the business and amend your operating agreement. I would get that notarized. So if you're not going to have an actual wallet transaction where you move assets from one wallet to another to be able to show that those were transferred in there, I think that that's more than you need to do. I would rather just keep it on the same wallet and then move the assets. Don't have to move the assets. Just get a notarized copy of me listing those as a capital contribution to the business, and that's the way that we do it. If that's something you guys are interested in, if you want the step-by-step guide along with the EIN, articles of organization, registered agent, certificate of good standing, video on how to set up a bank account, you get all of that for the $1,500 here on the website. It's digitalfamilyoffice.io/services/LLC entity formation. And the code for that $1,500 is 50 off DAG LLC. Get you everything, have it done back to you in like 3 to 5 business days in most circumstances. We got KJ. He says, I don't have a doubt here for the long haul. Wish I found you earlier. Mastermind member 460 is nuts, brother. Thank you for the kind words and appreciate you being part of the group. We've got almost 1,500 people there in the mastermind at this point, and just super blessed to be a part of that group with everybody else. Excited for the future. I think, on the other side of price appreciation, it's going to be kind of like Tiger 21 there in the mastermind. So if you don't know what Tiger 21 is, go check it out. That's kind of the long-term vision for the group there in the mastermind. And we will raise all the prices at least 10x on the other side of price appreciation. We're going to lock it down and make it very difficult, have a high level of scrutiny for people that are coming into the group there on the other side of price appreciation. So if that's something you want to be a part of and you want to get in now, again, you can use the code Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, get you a free month there in the group. Wow. Thank you for the super chat. They say, hi, Jake. Just joined Carbon One and look forward to all the great information. Thanks for all that you do for us new to crypto. My question is, where do you think XRP can reach in price in the next 5 to 10 years? Think XRP can reach in, Peter, if you want to look that far out, I think, David Schwartz has talked about XRP being $1 million. I know that sounds like hopium, okay, but there's a lot of people that didn't think Bitcoin would get to 1 million. At this point, a lot of people are like, well, it's a foregone conclusion it'll get to 1 million, which I don't think it is, but set that aside for a second. If you had global adoption of XRP at scale for all the back-end settlement for the derivatives market and everything else, and then you had expansion of economies across the known universe, right? Or even just the galaxy. If I know I'm sounding sci-fi here, but just stick with me. If we colonize Mars and you needed a transmission mechanism between that economy and here on Earth, you've got that. And then if you've got metaverses and other global economies that are other things outside of just traditional, global economics, you need an interoperability between those. And so as those scale out, you have more and more volume over the network and more value that's created. So anyway, I think it's highly possible in the next 10 years, talking 2035, you could see $1 million XRP. Monopoly Money 2024 says, "Hey brother, do you think that Ripple will donate the fine? Think that Ripple will donate the fine to the strategic reserve, and is that allowed to strategic reserve? What would that do to price?" It wouldn't do anything to the price, really. I mean, that's already held in escrow. It's kind of like the strategic reserve for Bitcoin. Like that Bitcoin was already held by the U.S. government. They just slapped a different label on it. But if the U.S. government decided they were going to use it, and let's say they wanted to label it a systemically important asset and a tier one asset inside the BIS, and banks were able to hold it at scale and wanted to hold it for their reserves, and it drove people to do that, then there might be, a price run on it. But I don't think Ripple will donate it. They'll either have to pay the fine, or there's a pre-negotiated contract, or there's a pre-allocated price. Like there's something where a transaction was structured between them and the U.S. government in the past at some point. So I don't think that they will donate it. Take a couple more over here on TikTok, then we'll wrap it up for tonight. We got Frank. He says ADA price for this bull run. It doesn't have any utility, Frank. Cardano, I like Charles. I like the technology. I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know what actual application besides gaming it has any traction with. We were at Rare Evo this year. I got to meet Charles Hoskinson in person, talk to his family office. Obviously, there's a lot of liquidity and speculation on ADA, but as far as actual utility of the network, I didn't see anything there at Rare Evo that I felt compelled was going to drive actual adoption of that network. It was a bunch of kids playing games and creating dApps on the network. So I don't know. I don't know what institutional adoption will happen for ADA, and so I have a hard time speculating on price appreciation for an asset that I don't know what's going to drive demand for it. How quickly does the lawsuit officially end? I think in the next 30 days, we'll see the end of the lawsuit between Ripple and the SEC. Hey, from Australia. Very cool. Good to see you here in the chat. This person says, Jake, do you think we will see a rise in XRP over the next couple days? That's quite possible. We've got a blood moon tomorrow. You've got, I don't know. There's, always people with their tinfoil hat on that something's going to happen. So it's quite possible. Tomorrow is a sunshine meeting between the SEC. They do that every Thursday at 2:00. Is this one going to be different? Maybe. That'd be great. This person says the 460 yard drive. Yeah, so I did play golf in high school. My claim to fame is I played with Jordan Spieth my senior year. I watched him shoot the course record there at Lakewood, 62, 64. Some of the best golf I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, I can still, get a hold of it every once in a while and hit it a long way. My short game is garbage. I don't have any more feel. Used to be able to take a 60-degree wedge and clip it and, have it spin and stop right next to the hole. And I just had a lot more feel when I was playing all the time. But yeah, I still catch one and knock it out there a good ways. Appreciate you on the kudos. One more super chat here. Rob says, took you up on the brown broke. All right. Very good to see. Sometimes late at night when I start to get concerned about the dip, I listen to your videos and find encouragement. That's good to hear, Rob. Yeah. Look, I've been in this a long time. I've made hundreds of thousands in a day, and I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in a day. I believe in the asset over the long term, and I've just had too many conversations at this point with Ripple and R3 and three-letter agencies and MasterCard and other regulatory bodies. There's too many people that I've had conversations with that lead me to believe this is going to be used at scale. And we've been to Swell the last 2 years, to see Ripple speak up on stage and all the people that they've had there talking about, what's going to be used and how it's going to happen. No Graham at Archax, got to have some drinks with him. Simon at Uphold. Like there's been so many people that I've just been really blessed and humbled to have a conversation with over the past 3 years. And all of them have been bullish on XRP. So leads me to feel the same way. And I'm glad I'm able to provide you some conviction when, sometimes emotions get high. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you'll have a wonderful evening, a wonderful week. I hope that you're able to conquer whatever you're looking to get done this week. Again, if you do want to be a part of the mastermind, you just go to beyondbroke.com and put in the code beyondbroke, the number 1, and then MO, get you a free month there in the group. And if you do need an LLC, you can just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io, and the code there is 50 off, 50 OFF DAG, like Digital Ascension Group. LLC gets you all you need for a digital asset management company for $1,500 all in 3 to 5 business days. So with that, we'll go ahead and say good night. I hope you'll have a wonderful one, and we'll see y'all next time.